A little while ago, I got myself this little 4.5-inch DeWalt circular saw. You can make quick bevel cuts up to 45 degrees by adjusting a knob and then moving the plate and then tightening it down. And the same thing goes for adjusting the depth of cut. And this saw can cut up to 1.5 inches, which is a standard 2x4. There's a safety feature that it only activates when you press the release button on the side. And the trigger will not work if you do not push that button down. You could also pull the blade guard back if you need to change the blade, or if you want to make a cut in the middle of a board. A quick and easy way to make cross cuts on a board is by using a speed square such as this one. I simply pull it up against the opposite end of the board. I then mark my line. And on the front of the saw, there's a little notch. It's about the same thickness as the saw blade, and that's to be used as your guide. And it's adjustable just in case it's off from the factory. Then just set your depth, and you can make the cut. And you'll notice that I am able to pull back on the speed square as I push through with the saw to make the cut. And it's the same procedure for angled cuts. You could also rip a board with this saw. I just mark out a line, and it comes with this little attachment, and you could use it as a guide. You just slide it in and tighten the knob to where you want the cut, and you just guide the saw through. Now, if I want to make a groove in a board that I'm cutting, all I have to do is just adjust the depth of cut. And here I picked 1/4 inch. And I just ran it through and then readjusted again and then made the cut again as many times as I needed for the width of the groove. And you can see here that I have a 1/4 inch deep groove down the length of the board. Now, if you have a very large board that your speed square is a little bit too small for, you can make this little jig. You just have to make sure that you have two sides that are perfectly straight to each other. I'm just using pine, and I planed down a board on one edge, and that was my reference edge. And then I used a square to make sure that everything was lined up. And once I had it set, I clamped it down, and I used thin CA glue to actually seep into the joint, and I used the accelerator to speed up the process. And that held everything in place so that when I screw the two screws in, nothing would shift. And then once it's all put together, you could make your first cut. And that first cut gives you a reference for all subsequent cuts. Simply line the end of the jig to your line, and you could make a cut. Another great thing to have is a straight edge clamp like this one. It simply clamps on both ends of the board, and you can use it as a guide to make rip cuts. You could also make your own jig using a piece of MDF and a piece of wood, similar to the crosscut jig, using some CA glue and a clamp to hold it down, and then screwing in from the other side. And then when you're ready to make the cut, you simply clamp it down to the piece of wood you're cutting, and you can use it as a guide. And after the first cut, just like the crosscut jig, you have a reference for all subsequent cuts. Make sure to like and subscribe.